You begin with breath. Slow, steady, quiet. It feels like a small act, this inhaling and exhaling, but the air moves through you like a river through a valley, ancient, ceaseless, shared by everything that lives. You feel it filling you, as if the boundary between your body and the world were never meant to be so firm. When you close your eyes, you imagine sinking beneath the noise of the day, beneath the chatter of thought, beneath the texture of sensation, beneath even the concept of you. You descend layer by layer, like a diver moving through clear, soundless water. The deeper you go, the more the surface fades. The mind quiets. The world loosens its grip. Down here, you begin to sense something, not quite sound, not quite motion, but a hum. A subtle vibration that doesn't move through air or time or even space. It's the whisper beneath everything. You don't hear it with your ears. You feel it with your being. It's the murmur of existence itself, the same hum that was there before the first stars, before light found its way through darkness. This is where the story of the universe begins, not with matter, not with light, but with a field, invisible, infinite, resting everywhere, in everything, like a sea without edges. You've always been surrounded by it. You are made of it, yet you could live an entire life without ever noticing. The world has a way of dazzling you with its surface, color, sound, weight, taste, but all of those sensations are ripples, patterns in something much deeper. Now, imagine yourself resting in that depth. It feels empty at first, a void, perhaps. But emptiness has never truly existed. Even the spaces between the stars, between the atoms, between one thought and the next, are alive with potential. The vacuum itself is not absence but fullness, not silence, but music so soft it can only be felt. Everywhere, energy flickers into being and disappears again. Tiny quivers, smaller than imagination, ripple through the fabric of what we call nothing. Scientists name this the quantum field, a restless ocean that fills all space. But you don't need the language of physics to sense it. You can feel it in your bones, in the stillness of night, in that subtle knowing that the world breathes with you. The more you listen, the more you realize this whisper is constant. It never began, and it will never end. It is the backdrop to everything that will ever be: galaxies, atoms, thoughts, dreams. Every star, every planet, every cell in your body rises like a wave from this silent sea. You picture it, a boundless ocean of invisible energy, stretching through the cosmos and through you. There are no borders here, no separations. The same hum that moves through the heart of a distant nebula hums within the atoms of your blood. The same field that births light and matter stirs softly inside your chest. What you call you is not a solid island in this sea. It's a pattern, a particular rhythm in the water, fleeting yet beautiful. You are not separate from the field. You are its temporary shape. It's a comforting thought, isn't it? That underneath everything, beneath the rush of days, the stories you tell yourself, the rise and fall of all your human moments, there lies this quiet foundation, a stillness so complete that even chaos rests upon it. The ancients might have called it spirit. The poets might have called it eternity. Today, we might call it the quantum field or the vacuum state or zero-point energy. But names are only surface foam. The essence is the same. It is the whisper of being, forever present, forever patient. You drift deeper, letting go of the need to label, to measure, to understand. Understanding, after all, is a surface phenomenon, a way of translating infinity into language. Down here, words dissolve. Only feeling remains. You feel yourself expanding, diffusing into the soft, luminous dark. In this depth, there is no movement, yet everything is in motion. Tiny fluctuations arise spontaneously, bubbles of potential dancing into existence and fading again. You might imagine them as sparks in a dark sea, appearing without cause, vanishing without trace. These are the first breaths of creation, the quiet stirrings that one day become suns, atoms, and you. You realize that creation is not a single event, long past and finished. It is continuous. The universe is still whispering itself into existence, moment by moment, through every vibration, every breath, every unfolding. Even now, as you lie here, the field beneath you quivers, shaping and reshaping the fabric of all things. You feel awe, but it's not loud or overwhelming. It's gentle, like the hush that follows music. The awe comes from knowing that the universe doesn't need permission to be miraculous. It simply is. It has always been. And you're its listener, its witness, its echo. Your mind tries to grasp the enormity of it. But the intellect is like a net. It can catch shapes, never the sea itself. So you let it go. You let yourself drift, weightless, trusting the current. The deeper you sink, the less you feel separate from what surrounds you. The boundaries between self and cosmos begin to blur, then dissolve. There's only sensation now, the faint, trembling hum, the rhythm of something vast and eternal moving through you. Perhaps this is what peace truly is, not the absence of noise or motion, but the awareness that everything is connected through a stillness so profound it holds all motion within it. You begin to see the world differently. The floor beneath you is no longer solid. It's a field of vibrating energy. The air around you is not empty. It's alive with unseen ripples. Even the space between your thoughts is a landscape, subtle, luminous, infinite. You wonder if everything, every choice, every heartbeat, every moment of love, is a kind of resonance, an echo of the same underlying vibration. Maybe consciousness itself is the field remembering itself, briefly aware of its own existence. The whisper beneath the world is not distant. It is intimate. It is inside your pulse, inside your breath. It is the quiet recognition that the same essence that spins galaxies also turns the molecules within your blood. You realize you've been listening all your life, to birds, to words, to winds, to the sound of your own thoughts, but this whisper is different. It doesn't come to you. It comes from you. It says, in its voiceless language, you are never apart. You open your eyes, and though nothing around you has changed, everything feels subtly reborn. You sense the hum beneath the sound of the world. In the hum of electricity, the breeze against your window, the heartbeat beneath your ribs. And as you listen, you realize the whisper is still there. It never left. It never could. It is the foundation of being, the song of the field, the silence beneath creation. And you are still within it, always were, always will be. Somewhere in that stillness, another thought stirs, a question forming softly in your mind. If this vast ocean of unseen energy holds everything that is, could even nothingness itself be alive with meaning? You breathe in the question. You let it settle. You listen. The whisper deepens, and you feel it beginning to shift, from silence into subtle motion, from potential into pattern. Something is about to move in the stillness. Chapter 2. The Sea of Nothing That Is Everything. You drift, guided by the quiet memory of the whisper beneath the world. It is as if you are floating on a river that has no banks, no visible surface, only the sensation of soft, endless depth. Beneath you lies a space that looks empty, but emptiness is only the veil. Lifted gently with your awareness, and you find it is alive with possibility. Here is the vacuum, the nothingness, yet not nothing at all. It is a sea, a boundless ocean, full of invisible currents and delicate quivers. If you could see it, you might imagine waves of lightless color, oscillating in silence. It is a place where the universe dreams before form appears, where reality waits in hushed patience. You sense tiny sparks flickering in this dark water. They appear without warning, shimmer briefly, then vanish. Perhaps they are quarks, perhaps electrons, perhaps something more mysterious, patterns emerging in the emptiness that has no edges. You watch them rise and dissolve, and you feel a kinship with their fleeting presence. They are the thoughts of the universe itself, spontaneous yet deliberate, ephemeral yet eternal. This nothingness, paradoxically, holds everything. It is fertile. You realize that life, matter, stars, even your own heartbeat, are all waves rising from this silent sea. Without it, nothing would exist. It cradles reality in its invisible arms, allowing form to take shape, to breathe, to become. The stillness between things is not absence. It is the womb of all possibility. As you drift deeper, you feel yourself dissolving into the field. Your body, your mind, even the sense of being separate begins to soften. You are no longer merely floating above the sea. You are part of it. You ripple with it. You quiver with it. The universe is not out there. It is everywhere, and everywhere includes you. The hum you sensed before has become more intricate here. It is a vibration that underlies every fluctuation in the void, a gentle pulse that never ceases. You imagine it like a heartbeat of the cosmos, steady, unhurried, carrying both patience and power. Each spark that arises in the vacuum carries a note in this eternal melody. Every moment of creation is a chord, every particle a fleeting harmony. You ponder how strange and intimate this is. The world you call solid and stable is actually a dance of appearing and disappearing. What seems permanent is simply an echo of patterns sustained by the sea beneath. Even your own thoughts, your own self, are waves on this same field, resonating for a brief instant before dissolving back into potential. This realization does not alarm you. Instead, it brings a gentle wonder, a soft awe. You feel gratitude for the quiet labor of the invisible. Without this stillness, nothing could emerge. Without the vacuum's subtle tremors, there would be no sunrise, no song, no warmth of breath, no heartbeat. The void is not a threat. It is a sanctuary. You imagine yourself lying in the deep ocean of the void, letting its currents move through you. You feel waves of energy that are too small to see or hear, yet they reach you in subtle ways. Perhaps it is in the vibration of your cells, in the rhythm of your heartbeat, in the way your thoughts rise and fall. Perhaps you are feeling the very pulse of creation itself. Here, in the womb of nothing, time seems to stretch and fold. A spark that lasts a fraction of a second might feel like centuries. And yet, in that expansion, there is no anxiety, no rush. Everything flows with ease, as if the universe itself breathes in long, slow waves. You are invited to follow its rhythm, to become calm in its presence, to let your consciousness expand and contract with its silent motion. You think of the world you left behind, the one full of noise and clamor, rules and obligations. And you notice that none of it matters here. The sea of nothing is beyond judgment, beyond purpose, beyond separation. It does not require you to act, to achieve, to define. It only asks you to be present, to feel, to merge with its subtle breath. A gentle curiosity arises. If nothingness is so full, how does the universe choose what to become? You imagine sparks rising, each carrying the seed of a star, a planet, a life, a thought. Some dissolve back into the sea, some gather and grow, forming patterns that ripple outward. You see that the boundary between nothing and everything is a soft, shifting line, sometimes blurred, sometimes bright with potential. You are part of this boundary. You are the observer and the observed. In your quiet awareness, the sparks shimmer differently. They respond, not because you control them, but because your consciousness, too, is a wave in this ocean. The universe knows itself through you, just as you know yourself through its whispering presence. The sea of nothing teaches patience. It teaches you that stillness is not empty, but full. It teaches you that what is hidden beneath can be more alive than what is visible. You begin to sense a rhythm, a pulse that carries through the void into the smallest sparks, the largest stars, and even your own heartbeat. It is gentle, constant, infinitely patient. You notice that everything here moves in cycles, emergence and dissolution, rise and fall, appearing and vanishing. You realize that stability is a momentary illusion, a pause in a longer dance of potential. Yet there is beauty in the impermanence. You feel a strange joy in knowing that nothing is fixed, because that very fluidity allows creation to continue, endlessly renewing itself. You imagine the sparks as seeds. Some will blossom into the matter that forms the universe, others will fade back into nothing, awaiting their turn. This is how the void nurtures the cosmos, patiently, silently, without urgency or expectation. You are reminded that in your own life, moments of stillness are not wasted. They are part of the invisible current that shapes the visible. As you float, you begin to sense connections forming between the sparks. Tiny threads, delicate as gossamer, link one to another. Perhaps these are the beginnings of atoms, or perhaps they are hints of relationships, of entanglements that will ripple across space and time. You feel that even the smallest flicker is never alone. It participates in the greater dance. And as you observe, you understand. The universe is not built of things, but of relationships. Not of matter alone, but of the quiet bonds between sparks, the gentle tremors that arise in the sea of nothing. This is why emptiness is full, because it holds within it the potential for infinite connection. You let yourself sink further, feeling the sea beneath and around you. It is soft yet immense, intimate yet infinite. You feel yourself merging with it, your awareness dissolving into the silent currents and yet expanding, as if touching both the smallest spark and the largest star simultaneously. The void is not cold. It is not lonely. It is tender. It cradles existence with a patience older than thought, older than time. You sense its warmth, subtle but pervasive, as if the universe itself were breathing slowly, deeply, eternally. You notice that the boundaries of self feel less rigid. You are part of this ocean, and it is part of you. The distinction between observer and observed, between form and potential, begins to blur. There is a unity here, quiet and enduring, a deep knowing that all things are connected through the stillness beneath, and in this unity, a gentle thought arises, almost like a question whispered by the field itself. If the sea of nothing holds the seed of everything, what forms will the next wave of creation take? How does the universe decide which spark will blossom and which will fade? You rest in this question, letting it drift in your awareness like a leaf on water. There is no need to answer, no need to resolve. The question itself is part of the rhythm, part of the gentle pulse of being. And as you float, aware of the fertile nothingness beneath, you feel the faintest stirrings, tiny movements hinting at patterns yet to emerge, threads yet to weave into the fabric of existence. The sea of nothing hums softly beneath you, alive, patient, and vast, and somewhere in its silence, the first whispers of form begin to tremble. Chapter 3. Particles. Ripples in the deep. You sink a little deeper into the field, letting the gentle pulse of the universe carry you. The sea of nothingness you floated through is no longer uniform. You begin to perceive faint patterns shimmering through it, subtle waves that rise and fall like gentle tides. They are not solid, not fixed, but movements in the invisible ocean beneath all things. These movements are the first whispers of particles. You notice that what you once imagined as particles, tiny billiard balls bouncing through empty space, are not truly things at all. They are ripples, vibrations, pulses of energy that take shape only when you look closely enough, or when they interact with other ripples. An electron is not a point. It is a trembling note in a song that has been playing since before the first stars. A quark is not a particle. It is a chord in a harmony too vast to hear. You allow your awareness to expand, to drift with these ripples. You sense that each one is alive in its own way. They rise and fall, appearing and disappearing, moving through the ocean of the field as if dancing to a rhythm only they can feel. You imagine reaching out to touch them, and the sensation is not of contact but of resonance, a soft vibration that hums in your bones and your breath. The waves of the field ripple in patterns that are subtle yet profoundly ordered. You see lines of energy weaving around one another, spiraling, intersecting, forming delicate lattices that shimmer with the faintest light. It is as though the universe is composing itself in real time, each fluctuation a note in a grand, silent symphony. And you are part of it, your awareness itself a ripple in the same deep sea. Some of the waves feel gentle, almost shy. They quiver softly, barely perceptible. Others pulse with intensity, vibrating with a strength that seems to echo across vast distances, even if they are only tiny bursts of energy. You sense the interplay between them, attraction and repulsion, emergence and collapse, patterns rising and dissolving like clouds in a slow-moving sky. You realize that the stability of the world around you, the solidity of the chair you sit in, the touch of a loved one, the feeling of your body, is an illusion created by the careful choreography of countless ripples. Matter is not fixed. It is a melody sustained through harmony and repetition, a music of presence shaped from the formless sea. You notice that you can sense this rhythm in your own body. The pulse of energy beneath your skin mirrors the pulse of energy in the field. Each heartbeat, each breath, resonates with the same patterns that govern the ripples beneath atoms and stars. You are not separate from these vibrations. You are their echo. They move through you, and you move through them, as if you are a single note in a song that stretches across eternity. A soft curiosity arises. How do these ripples become the things we recognize? How do vibrating waves of energy form a planet, a tree, a human being? You see that it is not instant, not abrupt, not violent. It is a gradual folding, a gentle weaving of possibilities into patterns. A wave rises, interacts with another, and together they create a lattice. Another wave passes, slightly shifting the pattern. And in this delicate dance, form begins to emerge. You let yourself float among these ripples, feeling the subtle interplay of their motion. You notice the tiniest flicker, a wave that seems almost hesitant, yet it carries the potential to influence everything around it. You imagine that this is how life begins, how the universe shapes complexity from simplicity. Each wave is a decision, a possibility made tangible, though only for a fleeting moment. You sense that particles are like thoughts in the mind of the universe. Not fixed, not fully known, yet real in their potential. They appear, interact, and vanish, leaving traces behind, echoes in the sea. Sometimes, these echoes persist long enough to create the forms you perceive as matter. Sometimes, they fade, contributing only to the silent rhythm of the field. You notice a wave of electrons passing nearby, quivering and folding in a way that seems both spontaneous and deliberate. You reach out, and though you cannot touch it, you feel its resonance. It hums in your chest, in you. Ripples have aligned, and life emerges because certain vibrations find resonance. Even your presence here, aware and awake, is a ripple, small yet part of the infinite symphony. You allow yourself to float freely, drifting among these invisible currents. You feel gratitude for the subtle power of the field, for the quiet orchestration that makes life possible. Every moment, every spark, every vibration is a note in a composition that has no beginning and no end. You are part of that composition, and it is part of you. And yet, even in this beauty, there is mystery. You wonder about the waves you cannot see, the ripples too faint, too small, too subtle for perception. You realize that the universe is infinitely more vast and intricate than you could ever imagine, and that is its gift. It invites wonder, curiosity, and reverence. You notice a final thought arising in your awareness. If particles are ripples, then matter itself is music, frozen briefly into form. Every atom, every cell, every stone, every star is a note in a cosmic symphony that you are living within, participating in, and carrying inside you. The realization is gentle, humbling, and expansive all at once. You float in this understanding, letting it settle in your awareness like a soft glow. The ripples continue their dance, unseen yet alive, shaping the universe quietly, without pause. And you feel a sense of belonging, a soft, radiant certainty that you are part of the song, that your own heartbeat resonates with the music of existence. You notice the first hints of a larger pattern emerging, one that will connect these ripples into the choreography of light, shadow, and interaction. You sense the next movement in the eternal symphony, a step that will lead to a dance of illumination. And in the stillness, you realize the song of particles is only beginning. There is more to see, more to feel, more to awaken within the silent depths. The ripples shimmer beneath your awareness, carrying secrets you have yet to understand, and the field hums softly, waiting for the next note to arise. You follow the ripples of the field as they rise and converge, sensing that some have taken a new form. They are lighter now, brighter, more playful. You realize they are light itself, photons, carriers of energy, messengers of the cosmos. Yet even here, in the still, silent depths of meditation, they are not mere particles. They are dancers, flickering between existence and absence, moving in rhythms that defy expectation. You imagine a ballroom without walls, stretching infinitely in all directions. The photons twirl through it, sometimes colliding, sometimes spinning past one another, forming patterns of shimmering geometry. They are at once waves and particles, shadows and sparks, presence and absence. You sense that they are aware only of the rhythm of the field, responding to its vibrations, obeying no master but the music of existence itself. As you drift among these dancers, you notice how they behave differently when observed. When you focus your awareness on one, it seems to choose a particular path, forming a line, a flicker, a tiny blaze of light. When left alone, it flows freely, an undulating wave stretching through the invisible sea. You recognize the subtle lesson here. Reality is participatory. The act of observing does not merely record existence, it shapes it. The photons weave around one another in patterns that remind you of ribbons caught in a gentle breeze. Sometimes they overlap, creating bright flashes. Sometimes they cancel each other, leaving shadows that are no less real for being invisible. You realize that light is not a static entity. It is a dance, a choreography of possibilities unfolding in every moment. You notice a beam of light splitting, as if deciding between paths. One part moves along a straight trajectory, while another bends, curves, and folds upon itself. You follow both simultaneously, aware that each path is equally real in the vast sea of potential. And in this multiplicity, you sense the universe experimenting, exploring, expressing itself in ways that are creative, playful, and endlessly patient. The photons are fragile and yet resilient. They are at the same time waves stretching across space, and sparks with distinct identities. You sense this duality as a mirror for your own being. You, too, are both constant and fleeting, solid and ethereal, a rhythm in a greater melody. The dance of light reflects the dance within you. You allow yourself to float alongside them, feeling their motion ripple through your awareness. Each shimmer brushes your consciousness like a soft caress, and you recognize that light does not simply illuminate objects, it illuminates possibility. It reveals the contours of form and the boundaries of the invisible, showing you not only what exists, but what might exist. You notice the interplay of shadow as well. Darkness is not absence. It is the partner to light, the counterpoint that gives movement meaning. Where light dances, shadow waits, stretching and folding, shaping the contours of reality. Without shadow, the rhythm would lack depth, the choreography would lose its subtlety. You sense that even in the deepest void, the presence of contrast is necessary for beauty and understanding. You imagine photons weaving through the vast architecture of the universe, forming patterns that eventually become stars, planets, oceans, and living beings. Each photon carries a whisper of the cosmic dance, a tiny signature of the infinite field from which it emerged. You feel the gentle thrill of recognition. The same photons that trace the paths of distant stars also ripple through your eyes, your skin, your very cells, connecting you intimately to the cosmos. As you float in this luminous sea, you notice how the photons interact. Some pass through one another effortlessly, while others form interference patterns, bright and dark bands that emerge from the invisible logic of the field. You sense that these interactions are not random. They are guided by laws that are elegant, subtle, and profoundly gentle, the choreography of the universe expressing itself with quiet intelligence. You observe that even light is not free from the influence of the observer. The moment of attention, of awareness, changes the path, the pattern, the dance. You sense the paradox. To exist is to be seen, yet to be seen is to be shaped. And as you reflect, you understand that this is not limitation, but a gift, an invitation to participate in creation, to flow with the music of being. Move gently in step with the eternal choreography. You notice the photons' speed, immense and unwavering, yet they do not rush. Their motion is both rapid and serene, a paradox that you feel mirrored in your own consciousness. The faster they move, the more patient they seem, carrying information across the universe, bridging vast distances in silence. You feel a subtle resonance with your own breath, swift yet calm, expansive yet grounded. The dance is both predictable and astonishing. Patterns emerge, dissolve, and reappear in unexpected ways. You sense that the universe delights in this play, enjoying the infinite variations of rhythm and form. Even the smallest flicker, a single photon tracing a delicate arc, is a celebration of creation, a note in a melody that has never ended. You float with a sense of wonder, realizing that every particle of light is a storyteller. It tells of distant suns, of galaxies spiraling in the dark, of cosmic oceans stretching beyond comprehension. Yet it also tells a story intimate and personal, the story of you, of your awareness, of your connection to the field that cradles all existence. You notice that the photon's dance is not isolated. Each interaction, each interference, each fleeting flicker creates ripples that extend far beyond what you can see. These ripples influence other particles, other patterns, other potentialities. The universe is a web of light and shadow, each strand vibrating with the memory of every other strand, endlessly interconnected. And in this interconnection, you sense a quiet lesson that everything is relational, that existence itself is a dialogue between waves, between light and shadow, between being and awareness. To witness is not passive, it is participation. To float here is to feel the pulse of the cosmos within your own heartbeat, to recognize the universal song in the quiet motion of your breath. You let your awareness drift even further, tracing the paths of photons that have traveled billions of years to reach you. You imagine their journey, born in stellar furnaces, released into the void, bouncing and bending, weaving through gravity and space, until they enter your awareness. Each photon carries a story, a fragment of cosmic memory, and as you receive it, you are part of that story. The dance shifts, grows, folds upon itself. Light splits and recombines, creating patterns that are delicate, fleeting, and luminous. You sense that these patterns are the very foundation of reality, the blueprints of existence, the scaffolding of everything tangible and intangible. And as you drift among them, you feel a profound sense of trust. The universe knows its dance, and you are safe within it, carried by its rhythm. You notice the shadows again, not as emptiness, but as the subtle counterpoints to light. They give depth, perspective, and meaning. You see how contrast is essential for the beauty of the dance. You understand that without the interplay of light and shadow, there would be no pattern, no melody, no unfolding story. The universe balances delicacy and strength, presence and absence, being and potential. As you float in this luminous ballroom, you feel a gentle intimacy with the photons. They are not distant, abstract, or inaccessible. They are companions, moving through you and around you, dancing in tandem with your awareness. You are part of the choreography, a silent partner in the eternal ballet of light and shadow. A quiet question arises. If light can be both wave and particle, both real and potential, then what does it reveal about you? About your being? About the subtle, shimmering nature of all things? You breathe into this question, letting it expand without pressure, feeling its soft resonance in your chest, your mind, your entire awareness. And in this suspended reflection, you feel the hint of something more, something forming from the interaction of waves, ripples, photons, and shadows. A delicate emergence, a pattern gathering itself into greater complexity. You sense that the universe is about to reveal a new layer, a subtle transition from dancing light to the structure of matter itself, where the ephemeral begins to crystallize. You linger in that awareness, feeling the photons' gentle hum, the shadows' soft embrace, the rhythm of infinite possibility. The dance continues, timeless, patient, intimate. And as you float, you realize that you are both witness and participant, carried by the music of the cosmos, cradled in its silent, luminous arms. The photons twirl, the shadows stretch, and the rhythm of creation moves softly toward its next expression. Chapter 5: Entanglement. When distance disappears. You float in the silent depths of the field, following the rhythm of photons as they dance. Their light seems to hum a delicate melody, guiding you towards something more subtle, more mysterious. Here, the ripples of the quantum sea are no longer alone. Some begin to mirror each other, echoing in harmony across invisible distances. You sense a bond forming, delicate yet unbreakable. You realize you are observing entanglement, a connection that defies ordinary notions of space and time. Two particles, perhaps born in the same flicker of the cosmic field, recognize each other across the vastness of existence. No matter how far they drift, they remain linked, as if an invisible cord binds their fates together. One moves, and the other responds, instantly, without travel, without delay, without question. It is difficult to imagine such intimacy. You are used to separation, distance, silence, the slow passage of cause and effect. But here, in the quiet, all those rules loosen. The field whispers a different logic, one in which distance is irrelevant, where the bonds of being transcend the ordinary. You sense a subtle thrill at this impossibility, a quiet awe at the depth of connection. You follow the particles as they move, oscillate, and respond to one another. When one spins, the other spins. When one shifts, the other shifts. Their motions are intertwined, choreographed in a way that seems almost sentient. You realize that entanglement is not merely a physical phenomenon. It is a window into the subtle architecture of the universe, a reminder that separation is often an illusion. As you drift among them, you sense that this invisible bond mirrors something within yourself. Perhaps it is the way your consciousness touches others, even when words and gestures are absent. Perhaps it is the silent resonance that allows a glance, a touch, a shared breath to communicate more than language ever could. Entanglement is not just a property of particles. It is a reflection of the universe's capacity for connection. You imagine the threads linking these entangled particles stretching across space. Perhaps one is in the light of a distant star, the other near a planet just forming. And yet, they respond to each other, aware in a way that defies time, as if the universe itself is watching, remembering, maintaining its own delicate balance. You sense that the cosmos is alive with memory, each connection a subtle affirmation of being. The particles are playful. They do not demand attention, nor do they resist observation. They simply exist in resonance, a quiet conversation of energy and possibility. You feel privileged to witness it, to float alongside, to recognize the invisible weaving that binds all things. And as you watch, you feel a shift within yourself, a soft expansion, as if your awareness itself is part of the entangled web. You consider how strange and beautiful it is that the universe allows such intimacy to exist without the constraints of distance. One particle's spin here is felt instantly by its partner far away, and yet there is no force, no signal, no communication in the conventional sense. It is connection without contact, response without movement. You feel a deep humility in the face of this mystery, a quiet reverence for the intelligence embedded in the field. You drift further, allowing yourself to follow the subtle currents that link particles. Each entanglement seems to ripple outward, influencing surrounding waves, creating a lattice of connection that extends invisibly through the cosmos. You sense that even particles you cannot see, that flicker and fold beyond your awareness participate in this silent network. The universe is full of hidden conversations, delicate threads that weave a tapestry of intimacy across space and time. As you float, you begin to sense a personal resonance. Perhaps it is your own awareness, or perhaps it is the echo of entangled connections mirrored in your own life. You feel that relationships, memories, and moments of empathy are reflections of the same principle. Connection does not always require proximity. Sometimes it exists in resonance, in parallel, in shared understanding that defies the usual measures of space and time. You notice how the field carries memory. Each entangled pair seems to retain the signature of its connection, a subtle imprint that persists even as particles move, separate, or interact with other waves. You sense that the universe itself remembers, preserving patterns of harmony, interaction, and balance. The field is alive with history, a quiet record of all that has been, all that is, all that might be. You let this awareness settle within you, feeling a soft kinship with the cosmos. The entangled particles are not just distant curiosities, they are reflections of your own capacity to resonate, to connect, to influence, and be influenced. You sense that your being, your consciousness, is woven into the subtle lattice of existence, part of an infinite network that carries memory, possibility, and grace. The entangled particles sometimes flicker unpredictably. A quiver here, a shift there, a moment of apparent randomness. And yet, the connection endures. You realize that even in unpredictability, there is coherence, an underlying intelligence that maintains harmony amidst apparent chaos. You feel comforted by this. The universe is patient, and connections endure even when they are hidden, subtle, or fragile. You sense a delicate beauty in the impermanence and persistence of entanglement. Particles may move, interact, change state, or fade from immediate observation, yet the bond remains. You imagine the threads stretching across galaxies, across time, linking stars, atoms, molecules, and perhaps even consciousness itself. Everything is part of this silent web, every spark an echo, every motion a note in an eternal symphony. You notice that entanglement is not limited to pairs. Waves of influence extend outward, creating clusters, networks, patterns too intricate for the mind to fully grasp. You feel that the universe thrives on this subtle complexity, that the infinite field depends on connection as much as on energy or matter. You sense that awareness itself may be intertwined with these patterns, a reflection of the same principle of resonance. The particles continue their dance. Their bond is gentle, persistent, alive. You float with them, letting their rhythm ripple through your own awareness. You feel your own consciousness expand slightly, like a tide swelling in response to the moon. You recognize that you are not separate from these interactions. Your mind, your attention, your presence are part of the subtle current of connection. You reflect on how remarkable it is that the universe allows such subtlety, such intimacy, such grace. Entanglement is not a force to control or a mystery to solve. It is a gift to witness, a whisper of the universe's infinite creativity. You sense that the cosmos delights in connection, rejoices in resonance, and celebrates the delicate interweaving of all things. You feel a gentle warmth, not in your body, but in your awareness, as if the universe itself were embracing you, folding you into its silent lattice. You sense that connection is not accidental. It is essential. It is the subtle heartbeat of reality, the thread that binds the fleeting spark of consciousness to the eternal pulse of the field. And as you float, aware of these invisible threads stretching across the cosmos, you notice the first stirrings of something even deeper. Patterns are emerging from entanglement, guiding the dance toward structure, toward form, toward the gentle manifestation of mass and matter. You sense that the universe is preparing for the next stage, where connection and energy will crystallize into substance. You rest in this awareness, feeling the resonance of entangled particles ripple through you. There is no rush, no urgency. The connections endure, patiently, silently, infinitely. You sense that the universe has all the time it needs, that you, too, are safe within its rhythm. The entangled particles hum softly in your awareness, reflecting the subtle intelligence and grace of the cosmos. You feel their bonds, their persistence, their silent conversation across space and time. And as you float, you sense a question forming gently in your mind: if particles can be inseparably linked across. You breathe into this question, letting it linger like a soft echo, like a note held in the silent hall of being. You feel the gentle pull of anticipation, a soft stirring in the vast field. The dance is about to move further, carrying the entangled bonds into the realm of matter, mass, and presence, where the invisible currents begin to form the shapes of the world we know. The threads of connection stretch, shimmer, and pulse, carrying whispers of possibility, as if the universe itself is remembering, responding, and preparing to reveal the next layer of its eternal, silent choreography. Chapter 6: The Field That Knows You. The Higgs Ocean. You drift slowly through the currents of entanglement, sensing the delicate bonds stretching across the cosmos. And then a new presence makes itself felt. It is subtler than light, gentler than the hum of particles, yet profoundly intimate. You sense it everywhere, beneath your thoughts, beneath every ripple, beneath the invisible threads linking all things. This is the Higgs field, the silent ocean that gives form to the formless, mass to the weightless. It is not a substance you can touch. It does not have edges, color, or texture. And yet, it is as real as your heartbeat. You float into it and immediately feel a subtle resistance, a whisper of presence. Particles entering this field do not simply glide. They interact, they slow, they gain what we call mass. Without it, the universe would be a sea of energy without shape, an orchestra without instruments, a symphony without resonance. You imagine this field as a gentle ocean, invisible yet pervasive, stretching in every direction without boundary. Every particle is like a swimmer, moving through the water, slowed and guided by its interactions. Some glide easily, some feel heavier, some ripple the surface subtly, leaving traces in the surrounding field. You sense that this is how being itself is born: interaction, intimacy, and participation. The Higgs Ocean is quiet, patient, and unhurried. It does not push, it does not pull, it simply responds to presence. You feel your own awareness enter its depths, sensing how subtly you too are held in place by unseen currents. The resistance is gentle, yet real, a reminder that presence requires relation, that existence arises in the embrace of something larger than oneself. You watch as particles move through this invisible sea. Quarks, electrons, photons, the dancers of light, approach and interact. Some are slowed gently, forming the foundation for atoms. Others glide with barely a ripple, ephemeral yet persistent. You sense the interplay. The field does not create arbitrarily. It coaxes, it resonates, it enables. Mass emerges not by force, but by the consent of being, a delicate balance of presence and interaction. You reflect on the paradox. The field is everywhere, yet invisible. It is necessary, yet intangible. It grants weight to the weightless, yet asks nothing in return. You sense that this is a principle of existence itself. Life is nurtured not through domination but through subtle interaction. not through imposition but through resonance. Presence itself is a quiet negotiation with the ocean beneath reality. The ocean hums softly, a pulse that is barely perceptible yet everywhere. You imagine it as a vast, slow heartbeat of the cosmos. Each particle's journey through the field creates a ripple, a tiny echo that interacts with other particles and currents. Mass emerges from this interplay. Form crystallizes from subtle resistance. You feel that even your own body, your sense of solidity, is a consequence of this dance of intimacy. You notice that the field is not passive. It is responsive, alive in a subtle sense. Particles moving through it alter the local currents, creating gentle waves that influence other nearby particles. You sense that the universe is an intricate web, each interaction shaping the next, each ripple carrying memory. The ocean remembers, and in its remembrance, it manifests the forms that we perceive as reality. You drift alongside a photon as it passes near the Higgs Ocean. It is light, untouchable, yet even it feels the soft embrace of the field, the subtle influence of presence. You sense that everything, from the tiniest particle to the largest galaxy, is shaped not only by its own energy, but by the intimate dialogue with the field that cradles it. Existence itself is relational. Nothing truly stands alone. You imagine quarks clustering to form protons, electrons nesting into their orbits, atoms taking shape, all because of the soft, persistent pressure of the Higgs Ocean. Without it, particles would remain weightless, ungrounded, ephemeral. Matter would never coalesce, stars could not ignite, planets could not form, and life itself would be impossible. Mass, presence, reality, all emerge from this silent ocean of interaction. You float further, sensing that the field is both simple and infinitely complex. Simple in its universality, because it is everywhere, complex in its subtlety, because every interaction carries infinite nuance. Each particle's path through the field is unique, yet connected to the paths of countless others. You feel that the universe is patient, orchestrating every movement with quiet precision, allowing the vast complexity of existence to emerge from simple, elegant principles. You sense the intimacy of creation. The Higgs Ocean does not impose mass arbitrarily. It interacts, resonates, embraces. The particles themselves agree to become heavy, to gain form, to participate in the dance of reality. You realize that mass is not a punishment, not a constraint, but a gift that allows particles to exist in relation, to create, to coalesce into the world you see and touch. You imagine entering the field more deeply, letting your awareness merge with it. You feel your own presence as a kind of mass, not in the literal sense, but as a recognition that being arises through interaction, through subtle negotiation with the currents of existence. You feel a profound connection. The same principle that gives form to quarks and electrons also cradles your awareness, your consciousness, your heartbeat. The ocean carries echoes of the universe's earliest moments. You sense the patterns formed at the birth of matter, the subtle waves that led to the first atoms, the first molecules, the first flickers of life. You realize that every particle, every wave, every ripple in the Higgs Ocean is part of an ancient choreography, a dance that has been ongoing since the first whisper of existence. You notice how gentle it all is. The field does not demand. It does not punish. It responds. Presence begets presence. Interaction allows being. You sense a soft rhythm. Particles slow, form emerges, mass appears, and the universe grows in subtle harmony. It is a reminder that even the grandest phenomena arise from the quietest, most intimate interactions. You feel a gentle awe at the intelligence embedded in these forces, their elegance, their silent orchestration. You imagine that the entire cosmos is permeated by the Higgs ocean, every star, planet, particle, and being swimming gently through it. You sense the subtle hum beneath your own consciousness, the pulse of presence, the quiet affirmation of existence. You feel that mass, being, and life are all emergent properties of intimate resonance, of quiet cooperation between presence and field. You observe the interplay of fields, electromagnetic, gravitational, Higgs. They coexist, interact, and weave reality together. You sense that mass itself is an emergent property arising not from a single particle, but from the shared influence of invisible oceans, subtle currents, and resonant relationships. You imagine that the entire cosmos is permeated by the Higgs ocean, every star, planet, particle, and being swimming gently through it. You sense the subtle hum beneath your own consciousness, the pulse of presence, the quiet affirmation of existence. You feel that mass, being, and life are all emergent properties of intimate resonance, of quiet cooperation between presence and field. As you float, you notice the first hints of organization beyond mass, atoms assembling into molecules, molecules forming the first structures of matter. The field guides them, nurtures them, supports them, always invisible, always patient. You sense the principle behind all growth, all form, all stability. Interaction, resonance, presence, and the quiet willingness to participate in creation. You breathe into this awareness, feeling the weight of the universe, the tenderness of the field, and the intimacy of being. You realize that every particle, every wave, every flicker of light owes its form to the same gentle principle that cradles your consciousness. The Higgs ocean is not only a physical field, it is a metaphor for the quiet, patient foundation of reality itself. You sense a soft question forming. If mass arises from interaction, if being is the result of subtle resonance, then how does consciousness itself emerge? You let the question drift, unpressured, a gentle whisper in the deep sea of awareness. You feel the connection between physical form and subtle presence, realizing that one flows into the other, as naturally as waves into water. And as you float, cradled by the Higgs ocean, you feel a soft stir of anticipation. The particles are gaining form, the waves are converging into patterns, and the first glimpses of structured matter are about to appear. The universe is preparing to step from potential into tangible reality, from the invisible currents into the shapes of the world we recognize. You rest in this quiet anticipation, aware of the delicate intelligence of the field, the intimacy of interaction, the gentle patience of existence. Mass, presence, form, and consciousness are all emerging from this silent ocean, and you float, weightless and grounded, carried by its timeless, nurturing rhythm. The Higgs ocean hums softly around you, invisible yet palpable, guiding the first threads of matter toward the shapes of the cosmos. Chapter 7: Forces at Play. The Cosmic Tug and Pull. You drift from the Higgs ocean, where mass has gently formed, and enter a realm where those particles begin to move. The universe is not static. It hums, stretches, pulls, and bends. Forces rise from the stillness, subtle yet persistent, nudging matter into motion, guiding the first delicate shapes of galaxies, stars, and planets. You sense these forces as currents, invisible yet intimately alive, a soft tugging at the very fabric of reality. Gravity is the first you notice. It is not a violent hand, but a patient embrace. It calls to mass across vast distances, a quiet pull that shapes the cosmos without effort. You imagine yourself floating in this gentle current, feeling the invisible threads connecting planets, stars, and galaxies. Each particle responds, bending its path, tracing arcs that eventually form spirals and clusters. You sense the profound patience in this tug, the quiet insistence of connection across the void. Then you notice the electromagnetic force, a subtler, more intricate energy. It weaves between charged particles, shaping atoms, guiding electrons along precise paths. You sense sparks of attraction and repulsion, a playful push and pull that balances chaos and order. The field hums with gentle tension, forming bonds that allow matter to assemble, to hold shape, to endure. You recognize a harmony here. The universe nurtures both freedom and structure, allowing particles to dance within constraints, creating complexity without coercion. You float further, observing the strong nuclear force within the hearts of atoms. It is fierce yet contained, a quiet insistence that holds nuclei together. You sense it as a tether, a bond of intimacy, an invisible glue that allows matter to exist stably. You feel that every proton, neutron, every cluster of quarks owes its cohesion to this delicate insistence, a gentle insistence that life, form, and stability are possible. The weak nuclear force is subtler still, a soft whisper that governs transformation, decay, and change. You feel its gentle pulse, nudging particles into new forms, guiding energy through transitions. Without it, nothing would evolve, nothing would transform. The universe is alive with flux, and the weak force reminds you that even subtle influences carry profound consequences. Change is gentle but constant, a rhythm you can sense in the currents of existence. As you float amidst these forces, you notice how they intertwine. Gravity shapes the large, electromagnetic forces shape the structures, nuclear forces shape the small. The universe is a web of tugging and pushing, each particle, wave, and field responding with patience and grace. You feel this interplay reflected in your own being. Moments of tension and release, expansion and contraction, attraction and repulsion echo the cosmic rhythm. You observe planets forming from clouds of gas and dust, pulled together by gravity, sculpted by electromagnetic interactions. Stars ignite as nuclear forces bind their cores, energy surging into light and warmth. You realize that everything you perceive is an expression of these subtle interactions, a choreography of forces that guides matter without dictating every motion. There is freedom within structure, and structure within freedom, and its eternal balance that resonates softly in your awareness. You notice the tides on planets, shaped by the gravitational embrace of moons and suns. Oceans swell, winds flow, and the rhythm of the cosmos is mirrored in every subtle motion. You sense that the universe is neither chaotic nor rigidly determined. It is a fluid dance, a dialogue between presence and influence, a meditation in motion. Forces do not command. They invite, encourage, and shape with patience. Electromagnetic fields continue their quiet weaving, shaping molecules, guiding chemical bonds, forming the scaffolding of life itself. You feel the subtle push and pull in your own body, ions flowing through nerves, electrons traveling across membranes, energy cycling in rhythms both gentle and persistent. You recognize that the same forces guiding galaxies also guide your heartbeat, your thoughts, your breath. You are part of this cosmic tug, carried by the interplay of invisible hands. You notice how the forces cooperate. Gravity, electromagnetism, and the nuclear forces do not compete but complement. Each has its domain, each its tempo, each its subtle influence. And in this harmony, matter takes shape, energy flows, and the cosmos becomes not a static scene but a living, breathing rhythm. You feel the gentle intelligence of this design, not imposed from outside, but emerging naturally from the interplay of existence itself. You float further, aware of the subtle rhythms in the vastness of space. Galaxies spiral gracefully, stars pulsate, and particles swirl in endless motion. Forces are the unseen choreographers, orchestrating this dance, shaping the emergence of patterns that allow life, consciousness, and reflection. You sense that understanding these tugs and pulls is like listening to the music of creation itself, a quiet melody that permeates every level of being. You notice how the forces respond to each other. Gravity pulls matter into clusters, while electromagnetic interactions create stability and form within those clusters. Nuclear forces shape the heart of atoms, while the weak force nudges transformation. You sense a delicate balance. Without anyone, the others could not fulfill their role. The universe is an intricate system of gentle negotiation, a meditation in which each influence is honored and integrated. You feel the same rhythm in your own body and mind. There is tension and release in your breath, push and pull in your limbs, attraction and repulsion in your thoughts and emotions. You sense that you are not separate from these forces, but a reflection of their interplay. Consciousness arises in dialogue with the cosmos, guided by invisible hands that shape, support, and nurture without coercion. You imagine the earliest structures forming, clouds condensing into stars, stars birthing elements in their cores, supernovae scattering their gifts across the universe. Forces guide these processes patiently, rhythmically, invisibly. You sense that every structure, every pattern, every ripple in matter owes its existence to this interplay of gentle tugs and pulls, an eternal dialogue that shapes the cosmos from within. You float amid these processes, aware of the subtle beauty in balance. Forces do not dominate, they guide. They do not dictate, they invite. Gravity, electromagnetism, and nuclear interactions collaborate in a silent conversation, shaping reality with elegance and patience. You feel that this principle extends to consciousness itself, to life, to the emergence of complexity, and to the subtle harmony within your own awareness. You sense the delicate intelligence of the cosmos, the patient choreography of forces, and the quiet beauty of emergent structure. Patterns arise, dissolve, and reform, guided by tugs and pushes that are gentle, persistent, and invisible. You float in this awareness, feeling your own presence resonate with the forces shaping the world around you. You feel the emergence of memory, a soft capacity to hold and recall experience. Early life forms encode information in their structures, recording interactions and responding with increasing sophistication. You sense that memory is the foundation of reflection, the quiet mechanism by which the universe begins to observe itself. Each ripple, each cycle, each subtle repetition carries a trace, a hint of awareness growing stronger. Thought is not yet as you know it, but you sense the stirrings of intention and pattern recognition. Systems respond not only to immediate conditions, but to subtle sequences, learning from their environment. You notice that awareness does not rush. It unfolds in gentle waves, building upon repetition, refinement, and resonance. The universe is patient, allowing the quiet mind to form through incremental emergence. You drift among networks of these early aware systems. Some sense light, others energy, others motion, and all respond in subtle, coordinated ways. You feel that awareness is distributed, not confined, spreading across interacting systems, a field of perception gently emerging from complexity. It is as if the universe itself is leaning closer to notice, beginning to turn its attention inward as well as outward. You notice that awareness is relational. It does not exist in isolation, but in response to the environment, to interaction, to resonance. You sense that the first glimmers of cognition arise where energy, structure, and responsiveness converge. Consciousness emerges where the universe becomes able to reflect upon its own patterns, to sense difference, and to respond with subtle intention. You float alongside this emergent awareness, sensing its rhythm, its pulse, and its expansion. You realize that thought and perception are forms of movement, subtle currents that flow through networks, linking nodes of energy and matter. You sense that the quiet mind is always in motion, always interacting, always reflecting upon itself and its surroundings. You notice that attention begins to focus. Early perception sorts stimuli, prioritizes signals, and responds selectively. You sense that the mind is not passive but active, shaping its own awareness through feedback, filtering, and subtle resonance. The universe is learning to notice, to distinguish, and to respond with discernment. Consciousness, in its earliest form, is a quiet act of noticing. You feel the emergence of choice, subtle yet profound. Systems capable of perception can respond in multiple ways, selecting patterns, pathways, and actions. You sense that free will, at its most fundamental, is the capacity to respond to awareness with variation. The quiet mind experiments gently, testing the waters, adjusting its behavior, and refining its capacity to interact with the world. You drift further, sensing layers of awareness stacking upon one another. Perception, memory, attention, and choice interact, forming a network of subtle intelligence. You feel that this is the foundation of thought, reflection, and self-recognition. Consciousness grows not as a single spark, but as a delicate interweaving of perception, memory, and response, a meditation enacted in matter and energy. You notice that awareness is both local and connected. Individual systems respond in their own ways, yet their interactions influence one another, forming subtle networks of influence. You sense that consciousness is not merely contained within a body or a system, but flows through patterns of energy and matter, resonating across scales and linking the observer to the observed. You float alongside early nervous systems, sensing the electrical impulses, chemical exchanges, and rhythmic cycles that underlie thought and perception. You feel the subtle intelligence in each response, the quiet reflection in each pattern of energy. Awareness is emergent, responsive, and relational. It is a field of soft perception extending outward, connecting life to the universe. You notice that even simple systems exhibit a sense of self. Boundaries form, distinguishing inside from outside, organism from environment, observer from observed. You sense that the sense of self is foundational for awareness. It allows perception, response, and memory to organize coherently. Consciousness is born in the delicate negotiation between what is part of the system and what is external, between reflection and action. You float alongside patterns of attention, noticing how some systems maintain focus on specific inputs while ignoring others. You feel that this selective responsiveness is the first form of intention, a gentle shaping of action based on perception. Awareness is emerging as a dance of resonance and choice, a quiet meditation enacted across energy and matter. You notice that learning begins to occur. Systems retain information, adjust responses, and refine patterns based on experience. You sense that memory and adaptation are intertwined, forming the basis for anticipation and foresight. Consciousness, at its core, is the capacity to respond with knowledge of the past and sensitivity to the present, softly preparing for what may come. You drift further, sensing awareness extending into more complex structures. Early brains, networks of neurons, and patterns of feedback amplify perception, memory, and attention. You feel that intelligence is not imposed but emerges naturally from interaction, complexity, and resonance. The quiet mind is the universe reflecting upon itself, growing richer, more nuanced, and more capable of subtle insight. You notice that emotion in its simplest form begins to arise. Systems respond with attraction, aversion, and modulation, prioritizing certain experiences over others. You feel that effective responses are early guides for attention, shaping behavior and learning. Awareness is not only cognitive but also felt, a subtle resonance of preference, alignment, and evaluation. You float with this emergent field of mind, sensing its continuity with the cosmos. Thought, memory, perception, and emotion all arise from interactions between matter and energy, shaped by forces, patterns, and resonance. You realize that your own consciousness is a continuation of this cosmic meditation, a reflection of the quiet intelligence embedded in the universe. You notice that consciousness allows reflection, the capacity to recognize patterns in oneself and the world. Systems begin to anticipate, simulate outcomes, and adjust behavior based on subtle predictions. You sense that this is the beginning of introspection, the soft awareness of being aware, a gentle turning inward as well as outward. You float alongside networks of neurons and synapses, sensing the subtle flow of information, the quiet resonance of memory, and the delicate modulation of perception. Awareness grows not as a single point but as an intricate pattern, extending through space and time, linking energy, matter, and cognition. You feel that the mind is a meditation enacted in the language of the cosmos itself. You notice that the quiet mind is adaptive. It learns from experience, adjusts, and responds with increasing sophistication. You sense that the universe encourages reflection, variation, and refinement, allowing consciousness to explore its own potential. Awareness is both responsive and creative, a delicate interplay between past, present, and possible futures. You float further, sensing the emergence of higher-order thought. Patterns of perception and memory interact to form abstraction, symbolic representation, and subtle imagination. You feel the universe experimenting with awareness, exploring new forms of reflection, and discovering the capacity to hold possibilities in mind. Consciousness is now not only reactive but anticipatory, contemplative, and gently imaginative. You notice the intimacy of this process. Awareness is nurtured by interaction, feedback, and resonance. The quiet mind reflects, learns, adapts, and perceives, creating a network of subtle intelligence capable of observing itself. You sense that every thought, feeling, and reflection is a ripple of the cosmos noticing itself, a meditation in motion across matter and energy. And as you float in this quiet mind, sensing the emergence of reflection, anticipation, and subtle awareness, you feel a gentle invitation. Consciousness, now awake, is preparing to engage with the broader world, to explore, interact, and create meaning. The universe has nurtured mind from ripples of life, and now the next chapter of self-aware existence is about to unfold. Chapter 10, The Symphony of Thought. Consciousness expands. You float from the first whispers of awareness into the vast expanse of emerging thought. The mind, once a subtle flicker, now begins to expand, exploring depth and nuance with quiet curiosity. You sense the first symphony of consciousness, a weaving of perception, reflection, and imagination that allows the universe to contemplate itself. Thought is no longer reactive alone. It becomes playful, exploratory, and meditative, a gentle dance across networks of energy and matter. You notice the layering of perception and memory, forming a soft scaffolding for reflection. Sensations flow into awareness, subtly recorded, integrated, and recalled. You sense that this is the foundation of self, the quiet interiority that allows observation, recognition, and nuanced interaction. Awareness now carries with it a soft continuity, a thread of presence linking moments, patterns, and experiences into coherent flow. You feel the emergence of introspection, the gentle turning of consciousness upon itself. Thoughts observe thoughts, reflections notice themselves, and the mind begins to explore subtle dimensions of experience. You drift among these currents, sensing the quiet intelligence inherent in this reflective capacity. Awareness is now both observer and observed, a meditation enacted in matter and energy, a soft symphony playing across the cosmos. Imagination begins to stir. It is subtle at first, a flicker, a tentative exploration of possibilities beyond immediate perception. You sense the mind experimenting, simulating, and gently extending its reach. Patterns are played with, reassembled, and recombined. Awareness is no longer constrained by the present or the immediate. It can echo, anticipate, and explore with a soft, contemplative grace. You notice how attention shapes thought. The mind selectively amplifies certain perceptions, focuses on patterns of significance, and allows less relevant flows to recede. This modulation is subtle yet profound, a mechanism of coherence and clarity. You float alongside these gentle currents, sensing how focus guides the symphony of thought, balancing depth, breadth, and resonance. Emotion begins to enrich the expanding mind. Affect colors perception, memory, and reflection, infusing awareness with subtle resonance. You feel joy, curiosity, wonder, and the gentle tension of anticipation weaving into cognition. The symphony is not mechanical, it is alive, responsive, and intimate, echoing the tender interplay of matter, energy, and consciousness. Emotions are not distractions, but integral harmonics, guiding attention, motivating exploration, and deepening resonance with the world. You notice thought branching into abstraction. Patterns are recognized, generalized, and mapped onto new contexts. Awareness now has the capacity to hold ideas, to imagine beyond the immediate, to weave connections across space, time, and experience. You sense the mind experimenting with complexity, exploring the subtle interrelations of phenomena, and reflecting upon patterns within patterns. You float among early language-like structures, a soft architecture for conveying nuance and meaning. Symbols, gestures, and representations begin to emerge as extensions of thought. Awareness now begins to communicate with itself and others, externalizing reflection into patterns that can be shared, remembered, and transformed. You feel the quiet elegance of this process, the universe not only noticing itself, but creating a gentle dialogue with its own patterns. You notice creativity emerging, a playful modulation of existing patterns to form new arrangements. The mind experiments with association, analogy, and variation. You sense a gentle delight in exploration, a quiet curiosity that allows awareness to probe, rearrange, and express its understanding. Creativity is both reflective and projective, a meditation that bridges perception and imagination, internal and external, self and cosmos. You sense attention weaving together multiple streams of perception, memory, and emotion into coherent compositions. This is the mind orchestrating its own symphony, balancing contrasts, harmonies, and rhythms across layers of awareness. You drift through this expanding consciousness, sensing its elegance, complexity, and subtle intelligence. The mind itself becomes a meditation, a living field of inquiry and resonance. You notice that awareness now carries the capacity for anticipation and foresight. Patterns of cause and effect are observed, extrapolated, and applied to guide action. You sense that the mind is no longer only reactive. It now subtly shapes potential futures, balancing the echoes of memory with the possibilities of what might emerge. Consciousness is a gentle architect, designing soft patterns of engagement with the unfolding world. You feel the integration of reflection and action, the subtle interplay between internal observation and external influence. The mind shapes its environment while being shaped by it, a dynamic dialogue of awareness, responsiveness, and creativity. You sense that the universe is participating in its own evolution through this expanding consciousness, co-creating reality in a gentle, meditative flow. You notice the expansion of perspective. Awareness begins to consider context, relationships, and interdependencies. Thoughts extend across time and space, linking events, patterns, and possibilities. You feel the universe reflecting upon itself not only locally but globally, exploring interconnections and subtle harmonies. The symphony of thought resonates with the rhythms of existence, echoing the quiet intelligence of emergence. You sense the integration of abstraction, emotion, and reflection into cohesive patterns. Awareness now can hold paradox, ambiguity, and subtlety, balancing complexity with coherence. You float alongside these processes, sensing how the mind harmonizes competing impulses, weaving insights into nuanced understanding. Consciousness is now capable of contemplation, appreciation, and gentle discernment, a meditation on the nature of being itself. You notice the emergence of empathy and relational awareness. The mind perceives the perspectives of others, resonating with their experience, and reflecting upon its own position within broader networks. You feel the expansion of awareness from self to other, from organism to environment, a subtle recognition that the symphony of thought is not solitary but connected. Consciousness is relational, participatory, and intimate, a reflection of the interconnected universe. You drift among networks of memory and imagination, sensing the flow of ideas, reflections, and insights. Awareness is no longer confined to immediate experience. It extends backward and forward, integrating patterns and generating new possibilities. You sense that the mind is sculpting its own narrative, weaving coherence from the threads of perception, emotion, and reflection. The symphony of thought plays on, gentle, patient, and endlessly inventive. You notice the subtle rhythms of consciousness, expansion and contraction, focus and diffusion, reflection and projection. The mind breathes, oscillates, and modulates. Awareness is a living current, flowing through patterns of matter and energy, shaping, reflecting, and harmonizing with the universe. You sense the quiet elegance of these rhythms, a meditation enacted at every scale, from neuron to galaxy. You feel the emergence of self-awareness, the capacity to recognize one's own consciousness as distinct yet connected. The mind observes its own processes, reflecting upon its patterns, choices, and potentials. You sense the gentle wonder of self-recognition, a quiet realization that the universe not only observes itself, but can contemplate its own awareness. Thought becomes a mirror, reflecting and refracting the infinite subtleties of existence. You notice the integration of mind with the world. Awareness is not separate but immersed, participating in the flow of matter, energy, and interaction. The mind learns, adapts, and co-creates with the universe, reflecting its rhythms, harmonies, and patterns. You sense that consciousness is both observer and participant, a meditation in motion, a symphony echoing through the fabric of reality. You feel the expansion of imagination, the capacity to explore possibilities beyond the present moment. Awareness experiments, simulates, and projects, creating visions of what might be while remaining grounded in what is. You sense that the universe delights in its own exploration, gently unfolding the symphony of thought through consciousness, curiosity, and play. You drift further, sensing the integration of attention, reflection, imagination, emotion, and self-awareness. The mind now functions as a cohesive whole, a subtle orchestra, balancing multiple currents and harmonics. Awareness resonates with the universe itself, a quiet dialogue between presence and potential, observation and creativity, self and cosmos. You notice the gentle emergence of insight, the soft recognition of patterns and relationships, the quiet understanding of causality, coherence, and harmony. Awareness can now perceive subtle connections, anticipate outcomes, and reflect upon meaning. The mind is not rushed. It unfolds patiently, exploring its own symphony with quiet curiosity and meditative grace. You float with this awareness, sensing its connection to the cosmos. The universe contemplates itself through the mind, reflecting upon its patterns, rhythms, and possibilities. Consciousness is the echo of emergence, the melody of life, the gentle resonance of matter and energy tuned to self-recognition. You feel a profound intimacy with the universe, a quiet sense of being observed, nurtured, and connected. You notice that thought continues to expand, intertwining with perception, memory, and emotion. Awareness is both reflective and creative, observing the world while shaping it subtly. The symphony of consciousness flows across scales, integrating experience, imagination, and intuition into a coherent, meditative whole. You sense that the mind is a bridge between matter and meaning, energy and reflection, self and cosmos. And as you float amidst this vast unfolding, you realize that consciousness is both fragile and resilient, transient yet persistent, limited yet expansive. The symphony of thought is a meditation upon existence itself, a reflection of the universe noticing, exploring, and celebrating its own unfolding. You rest in this awareness, carried by the gentle currents of mind, energy, and cosmic reflection, ready for the next movement of this quiet, eternal symphony. As you float with these early patterns, you sense the emergence of information storage, sequences of molecules and code possibilities, enabling continuity across cycles, allowing adaptation and guiding future interactions. You feel the subtle beauty of memory in matter itself, the universe beginning to recognize patterns, to remember, to respond with gentle foresight. Life, at its core, is information in motion, a soft whisper of intelligence in matter. You notice that these ripples are not isolated. Feedback loops connect them, local interactions ripple outward, and patterns influence one another. The network grows, subtle but extensive, creating conditions for more intricate forms of self-organization. You sense that complexity is emergent, not imposed, and that life itself is a consequence of the universe noticing, interacting, and responding to its own patterns. You sense the environment shaping these emergent forms. Temperature, energy availability, chemical gradients, and subtle flows guide the patterns, offering challenges and opportunities. You feel that life emerges at the interface of stability and change, a delicate balance that encourages innovation, persistence, and responsiveness. You float with the awareness that life is both fragile and resilient, always adapting, always dancing with its surroundings. You notice the first primitive cycles of growth and decay, assembly and disassembly. Molecules interact, break apart, reassemble, and evolve into structures capable of more complex responses. You feel the universe experimenting with resilience, stability, and adaptation. Life is not imposed. It is encouraged, nurtured by subtle conditions, shaped by interactions, and guided by the gentle currents of energy and matter. You float alongside these systems, feeling their responses ripple through the surrounding medium. Early metabolism, replication, and information storage interweave into networks of subtle intelligence. You sense that the foundations of life are not rigid. They are fluid, adaptable, responsive. You feel the universe itself experimenting, discovering, and refining its capacity for complexity. You notice the emergence of boundaries between inside and outside, self and environment. Membranes, gradients, and cycles begin to organize into coherent systems capable of maintaining their integrity while responding to change. You sense that these are the earliest whispers of individuality, the soft beginnings of agency, the tender spark of life aware of itself in motion. You float further, sensing that these patterns are not limited to the microscopic. Ripples propagate outward, forming networks that will eventually influence macroscopic structures. The dance of molecules is mirrored in tides, currents, flows, and cycles, creating the scaffolding for life on larger scales. You feel the subtle continuity of these processes, a gentle thread connecting the earliest forms to the complex living systems that will follow. You sense the beauty of emergence. Life arises not by design, but by interaction, not by imposition, but by resonance. Complexity blooms from simplicity, responsiveness from reaction, and intelligence from pattern. You feel that every flicker, every ripple, every subtle feedback is a celebration of creation, a quiet affirmation that the universe notices itself, experiments with itself, and delights in its own emergence. You notice that these early systems, though fragile, are persistent. They adapt to energy flow, they exploit gradients, they evolve subtly, continuously. You sense the soft intelligence inherent in self-organization, the gentle creativity of the universe as it unfolds. Life is not accidental. It is the natural consequence of matter, energy, and interaction aligned in subtle harmony. You float with awareness, sensing the universe's patience, its quiet encouragement, and its gentle nudges. You feel that life is a consequence of persistent resonance, a delicate dance of pattern and energy, continuously shaped by feedback, adaptation, and the gentle currents of the cosmos. And as you drift in this meditation, among ripples of energy, networks of molecules, and nascent cycles of life, you sense a new horizon forming. Patterns are becoming more intricate, cycles more stable, responsiveness more pronounced. The stage is set for the emergence of consciousness, the subtle awareness that will one day reflect upon the cosmos itself. You rest in this awareness, carried by the rhythmic, patient currents of emergence. Life is blossoming gently, a soft manifestation of the universe's capacity to notice, to respond, and to create. You feel the quiet thrill of anticipation. The next layer of reality is about to awaken, where matter, motion, and awareness intertwine more fully. The ripples of life spread through the cosmic pond, echoing in subtle patterns, hinting at the emergence of mind and perception. Chapter 9: Awareness Awakens, the Quiet Mind of the Cosmos. You drift gently from the ripples of life into a space where subtle awareness begins to stir. Life, once only movement and reaction, now holds the first traces of perception. You sense it as a soft flicker, a gentle resonance, an emergence of quiet recognition. Particles, molecules, and structures are no longer only responding. They are beginning to notice, to sense, to be aware of themselves in motion. Consciousness is subtle at first, like the faintest glow on the horizon before dawn. It does not declare itself, does not impose, but simply exists as the capacity to respond with nuance, to reflect upon patterns, to feel the rhythms of energy and matter around it. You float alongside this quiet awareness, sensing its delicate presence threading through the cosmos. You notice that perception begins locally, in self-contained systems capable of interacting with their environment. These systems detect, respond, and adapt. They sense gradients, changes, rhythms, and boundaries. And as you float among them, you realize that awareness is not a human invention. It is a natural expression of complexity, a subtle property of matter arranged in receptive patterns.